my name is Kelsey Harper, and this is my Assessment 5 video for my capstone project. I will begin discussing who I did my interview on for this capstone project. My interview was on Dalton, that is my significant other. I ended up doing, we spoke on 4 different occasions, and we did 2 to 3 hours per meeting, specifically talking and interviewing him for this capstone project. The interviews took place at his house, because that is where he felt most comfortable, in a setting of kind of in an environment where he could be fully himself and speak out where nobody else hearing him. So the problem that we were addressing with Dalton was his anxiety. Dalton has had anxiety since he's been little, but he's unsure of what it was. We've grown up in a small town in West Virginia, and a lot of times people think of anxiety and other mental health related illnesses like that as, oh, you just have anxiety. Everybody has anxiety. But I think it was like 4 years ago that Dalton has said, this is more than just your typical anxiety, and he was finally diagnosed. So we discussed that and the experiences that he had with that. This was not only a problem for him, but a problem for his family and friends. It affects everyone because not only is he anxious, but it affects the way that he interacts with members of his family and his peers. So that's been something to adjust for everyone. The intervention that I suggested to him was, we spoke a lot about telehealth and telemedicine. A lot of technology as far as like journaling on his phone, which he does, support groups virtually, and things of that nature. We also discussed education. In Assessment 4, I had given him a brochure with lots of education on it. We've discussed different types of things that he can do to help with his anxiety, and that he felt that was a good intervention. The patient and his family and friends can apply this intervention by making sure he goes to those support groups, which I will do as well as his significant other, making sure that he understands his anxiety to the fullest, making sure that he's being heard by his healthcare team and things of that nature, and making sure that he's just well educated on what his anxiety is and what he needs to do to overcome it or help it. The next thing that I want to discuss is how often the intervention will be used and under what circumstances. As far as the intervention of telehealth and telemedicine and his over the phone calls with his therapists and things of that nature, as far as that, I think that it would be good for him to do at least once a month. It doesn't have to be like an everyday thing or even an every week thing. His anxiety gets high on certain occasions, so it's very good for him to be able to talk to somebody at least once a month, more regular, somebody who's in that field. It's easy for him to use this intervention because it's readily available. Telehealth, as I discussed in several of my papers that I wrote, telehealth is more readily available today than ever before, thanks to COVID-19. But I feel that he is going to be able to use those interventions to help him even more now. Whenever he gets with his therapist, he can bring up the telehealth. He can journal on his phone at any time. We always have our phone in our hands. And of course, being educated, that's just something that is really helpful to patients. So the next thing I want to discuss is describing any challenges associated with the patient, the family, and the group's use of the intervention. So for Dalton, it's very important to him to keep this kind of private. He doesn't like to discuss himself. He doesn't mind if I do for these types of things, but he doesn't like to discuss himself about his anxiety. So I think that's kind of an issue for him with the intervention of the telehealth. He's very much doesn't like to discuss the issues with other people. So that's going to be a challenge for him to kind of open up and get more into those support groups and that sort of thing. Instructions weren't necessarily a big deal with the intervention that I used. I just told him that he needs to go to his psychiatrist, and he needs to ask them what they think about getting consulted with a telepsychiatrist whenever especially whenever his anxiety gets bad. And then as far as him journaling on his phone, I told him every time he feels anxious, it doesn't even have to be every day, that would be a super important thing to do. What did the patient, family, or group say about the intervention? Well, his family, he did not mention it to them due to being kind of private about it, but he thought that the intervention would be very helpful. He felt that if he could talk to somebody from the comfort of his home, kind of like we did with his interviews, that he felt that would make him so much more comfortable whenever it came to discussing his anxiety and the challenges that he's had to deal with that. How will the patient, family, or group continue to use this intervention? He's going to continue to, he's meeting with his psychiatrist, discussing it with family members, and trying to be more open with his anxiety. He said he's going to start journaling on his phone. He's going to look for support groups virtually more so than in person, even though I told him he should be open-minded about that. Explain how the interventions positively and negatively affected the patient, family, or group's life. He's felt that the interventions will positively affect his life because he's able to open up more in the comfort of his own home. They could be negatively affected if he doesn't stick with the routine as he should, but I told him he should discuss that with his family in order to keep him in line with that. How can the effect be measured? So the effect can be measured by maybe seeing a decrease in his anxiety over the course of the next month or 2 months. We can set a quarterly evaluation of his anxiety, and if he feels that it is improved by talking to the psychiatrist in that 3-month period, then continue to do so. And if he feels that it was not improved over the 3-month period, then maybe stop and reevaluate what we can do better. Maybe he needs to meet with his psychiatrist more often. Maybe he needs to discuss with family more often. Maybe he needs to get on medication or change different things about his daily intakes and stuff like that. But yeah, and then I also just wanted to talk a little bit about my personal growth over the course of the RN to BSN program. This RN to BSN program has been nothing short of challenging. I work a full-time job, and it has been hard to balance school and work. However, with that being said, I feel that writing these papers and working in an emergency department setting, it has really shown me what it's like for a baccalaureate nurse, be able to balance those two kinds of things if I were to ever go into like a management position or a position that holds a higher credibility than just a bedside RN. So I think that has given me a lot of insight of what it might be like to, further my education or even go as far as master's degree. I felt that I've learned a lot throughout this program, not only with the work, but as far as effective collaboration, interdisciplinary collaboration, technology, different uses, things I never really thought about as a bedside RN. I feel like they've been brought to light more in this program. It has been very beneficial as far as learning about thinking of things outside of the box. I typically, I'm one to think, we gotta give people meds, we gotta walk people, we gotta, just do your basic RN, bedside RN type things. And now with having the BSN, or about to have the BSN, and going through this whole program, it makes me look at things from a different perspective. For example, like previously, I may have looked at a patient's family as just being a family. They're in there because they love them. But now I look at them as part of the patient's healthcare team. They can be advocates for the patient. You know, I need to be listening to them more. I need to advocate for the patient in general. I need to look at the big picture rather than the small picture. But I definitely think that this experience through Capella's BSN program has been very beneficial, and I would highly recommend it to anybody looking to get your BSN. It's not easy, but it is definitely doable in 12 weeks or longer if you need it. And I highly encourage anybody who's thinking about getting their BSN to go for Capella, because it really is a good school. I've learned a lot. The instructors are great, and they have really been encouraging and helpful throughout this process. And I am very excited to be an RN BSN very, very soon. Thank you.